In June 1941, Serbs in eastern Herzegovina rebelled against the authorities of the Independent State of Croatia, an Axis puppet state established during World War II on the territory of the defeated Kingdom of Yugoslavia. As the NDH imposed its authority, members of the fascist Ustaše ruling party began a campaign of persecution against Serbs throughout the country. In eastern Herzegovina, the Ustaše perpetrated a series of massacres and attacks against the majority Serb population commencing in the first week of June. Between 3 and the 22nd of June 1941, spontaneous clashes occurred between NDH authorities and groups of Serbs in the region. The German invasion of the Soviet Union began on the 22nd of June. Over the next 2 days, the sporadic revolts by Serbs against the NDH in eastern Herzegovina erupted into mass rebellion, triggered by Ustaše's persecution, Serb solidarity with the Russian people, hatred and fear of the NDH authorities, and other factors. Serb rebels, under the leadership of both local Serbs and Montenegrins, attacked police, gendarmerie, Ustaše and Croatian Home Guard forces in the region. In the first few days, the rebels captured gendarmerie posts in several villages, set up roadblocks on the major roads and ambushed several military vehicles. On the night of the 26th of June, the rebels mounted a sustained attack on the town of Nevesinj in an attempt to capture it, but the garrison held out until the morning of the 28th of June when NDH troops broke through the rebel roadblocks. On the 28th of June, the rebels ambushed a truckload of Italian soldiers, prompting the Italian army commander in the NDH to warn the NDH government that he would take unilateral action to secure communication routes. A further gendarmerie post was destroyed by the rebels, and in the evening the rebels captured the village of Avtavac, looting and burning it, and killing dozens of non-Serb civilians. The following day an Italian column cleared the rebels from Avtavac and relieved the hard-pressed NDH garrison in the town of Gacko. For the 3rd of July, an NDH force of over 2,000 fanned out from Nevesinj, clearing towns, villages and routes of rebels. Rebel forces did not put up any significant opposition to the clearing operation, and either retreated into nearby Montenegro, or hid the weapons in the mountains and went home. By the 7th of July, NDH forces had regained full control of all towns and major transport routes in eastern Herzegovina. Background: the Independent State of Croatia was founded on 10 April 1941, during the invasion of Yugoslavia by the Axis powers. The NDH consisted of most of modern-day Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, together with some parts of modern-day Serbia. It was essentially an Italo-German quasi-protectorate, as it owed its existence to the Axis powers, who maintained occupation forces within the puppet state throughout its existence. In the immediate aftermath of the Yugoslav surrender on 17 April, former Royal Yugoslav Army troops returned to the homes in eastern Herzegovina with the weapons. This was a significant security concern for the fledgling NDH government due to the proximity of the border with Montenegro, the close relationship between the people of eastern Herzegovina and Montenegro, and widespread banditry in the region. On the day after the surrender, the commander of the NDH armed forces, Vojsko Vodslav Kovačević, issued a proclamation demanding the surrender of all weapons to NDH authorities by the 24th of April. On the 24th of April, the NDH created 5 military command areas, including Bosnia Command and Adriatic Command, both of which were initially headquartered in Sarajevo. Each of the 5 military commands included several district commands. Adriatic Command included the districts of Nin and Sinj in the Dalmatian hinterland, and Mostar and Trebinj in eastern Herzegovina. The NDH began to mobilize soldiers for the Home Guard, with 6 battalions identified to join Adriatic Command. The battalions were mobilized from areas outside of eastern Herzegovina, and were to be ready by the 20th of May. The aggressive actions of the Ustaše's 5th column during the Axis invasion made Serb civilian leaders in eastern Herzegovina apprehensive about the NDH, and they attempted to obtain Italian protection, and urged the Italians to annex eastern Herzegovina to the neighboring Italian-occupied territory of Montenegro. A collaborationist interim advisory committee of Montenegrin separatists was advocating the establishment of an independent Montenegrin state, and a similar committee of separatist Serbs was formed in eastern Herzegovina. A delegation from the committee arrived in Cetinje in Montenegro on the 6th of May to ask for Italian protection. Similarly, a delegation of Muslims from eastern Herzegovina traveled to Sarajevo, the historic Bosnian capital, to urge the NDH authorities to link eastern Herzegovina to the city. Due to the poor response to the demand from the surrender of weapons, the deadline was extended several times until a date of the 8th of July was fixed. On the 17th of May, courts-martial were established to try those that were arrested in possession of weapons, and those found guilty were immediately executed by firing squad. The precedent for this brutal repressive measure against Serbs had already been established by the Germans. It was clear from the outset that the NDH weapons laws were not being enforced as strictly against Croats as they were against Serbs. Securing the border between eastern Herzegovina and Montenegro was considered a high priority due to concerns that the Montenegrin Federalist Party had revived Montenegrin claims to parts of the NDH that had been promised to the Kingdom of Montenegro in the 1915 Treaty of London. The Italians handed over the administration of eastern Herzegovina to the NDH government on the 20th of May 1941. Following the signing of the Treaties of Rome, which ceded formerly Yugoslav territory along the Adriatic coast to Italy, the Italians did not immediately withdraw all the troops from the region. The NDH moved quickly to establish its authority in the towns and districts of eastern Herzegovina, which included appointing mayors and prefects, the creation of local units of the Ustaše militia, and deploying hundreds of gendarmes, Croatian Home Guards and Ustaše militia units from outside eastern Herzegovina. These forces were brought in to maintain order. The academic Professor Alija Suljic was appointed the Ustaše's Commissioner for Eastern Herzegovina. On the 20th of May, a recently formed Home Guard battalions began to deploy into the Adriatic Command area. On the 27th of May, 6 officers and 300 gendarmes of the Sarajevo-based 4th Gendarmerie Regiment were deployed into parts of eastern Herzegovina. They established platoon-strength posts in Nevesinj, Trebinj, Gacko and Bilica, with the headquarters also in Bilica. The Dubrovnik-based 2nd Gendarmerie Regiment established posts in Starlac and Berkovici. The headquarters of Adriatic Command was transferred to Mostar in late May, and General Ivan Perpic was appointed as its commander. By the 29th of May, the battalions of Adriatic Command were in the garrison locations: the 6th Battalion at Mostar, the 7th Battalion at Trebinj, and the 10th Battalion in the Dubrovnik area. The other two Adriatic Command battalions were deployed to Nin and Sinj far to the west. The 18th Battalion was allocated as a reserve and was garrisoned in Mostar. Main Ustaše headquarters was tasked to recruit one battalion for duties within the Adriatic Command area. Home Guard battalions had standard structure, consisting of a headquarters company, 3 infantry companies, a machine gun platoon and a communications section, while battalions of the Ustaše militia consisted of a headquarters, 3 companies and a motorized section. Even after the establishment of NDH authorities in Eastern Herzegovina, Italian forces maintained their presence in the region. The 55th Regiment of the 32nd Infantry Division Marsh remained garrisoned in Trebinje, with the 56th Regiment based in Mostar. The 49th MVSN Legion were also stationed in Bilica. The Italians maintained a troop presence in Nevesinj until the 17th of June and conducted almost daily motorized patrols throughout Eastern Herzegovina. The NDH authorities established new administrative subdivisions, organizing the state into counties and then districts. Eastern Herzegovina was covered by the counties of Hum and Dubrava. Hum County included the districts of Mostar and Nevesinj, and Dubrava County included the districts of Bilica, Gacko, Starlac, Ravena and Trebinje. The Zupan of Hum was Josip Traja with his seat in Mostar, and the Zupan of Dubrava was Ante Buck based in Dubrovnik. According to the Yugoslav census of 1931, the population of Eastern Herzegovina comprised 4% Croats, 28% Muslims, and 68% Serbs. According to Professor Jozo Tomasevic, the estimated population of the districts of Bilica, Gacko and Nevesinj was only around 1.1% Croat. So in those areas nearly all the NDH government appointments and local Ustaše units were staffed by Muslims, an ethnic group that made up about 23.7% of the local population. The poor Muslim peasants of Eastern Herzegovina largely sided with the Ustaše. The NDH government immediately tried to strengthen the position by vilifying the Serbs, who, according to Tomasevic, comprised around 75% of the population. Prelude. The Ustaše began to impose the new laws on the Serb population of the NDH. On the 28th of May, a group of 10 young Ustaše students from the University of Zagreb arrived in Trebinje and began removing signs written in the Cyrillic script used by Serbs. On the 1st of June, in several towns and villages in Eastern Herzegovina, Serbs were shot and businesses belonging to Serb merchants and others were seized. On that day, the Ustaše students in Trebinje shot 9 Serbs and arrested another 15, apparently due to the links to the interwar ethnic association. Differences began to appear between the brutal treatment of Serbs by the Ustaše and the more careful approach of the other NDH authorities such as the Home Guard, who were aware of the potential danger created by Ustaše's methods. In early June, the NDH authorities began operations to confiscate weapons from the population, meeting with immediate resistance. On the 1st of June, the residents of the village of June.Between, near Nevesinj, refused to cooperate with weapons collectors. In response, the Ustaše killed a number of Serbs and burned their homes. On the 3rd of June, there were several incidents in which armed villages spontaneously retaliated against the local authorities. That afternoon, 20 Ustašes were entering June.Between to confiscate firearms when they were attacked by a group of armed villages. The villages withdrew after a short firefight, with one of the number being captured. Reinforcements from the Home Guard and gendarmerie soon arrived, along with more Ustaše Ustaše, who burned another 20 houses and shot a woman. On the night of 4/5 June, a group under the control of the Ustaše Commissioner for the Gacko district, Herman Tonagel, killed 140 Serbs in the village of Karita, near Bilica, and threw their bodies into a nearby sinkhole. Another 27 Serbs from the village were killed between this massacre and the 9th of June, and over 5,000 head of livestock were stolen and distributed to Muslim villages in the Gacko area for the exclusive use of the Ustaše. The estimated number of Serbs killed at Karita vary from 133 to 180. In the immediate aftermath, Serbs and Montenegrins from the local area attacked villages, and Adriatic Command sent the 2nd Company of the 7th Battalion from Bilica to reinforce the Ustaše. After a brief clash near Karita, during which the Ustaše and gendarmerie lost 1 killed and several wounded, the rebels withdrew across the nearby border into Montenegro. The 2nd Company of the 7th Battalion spent the night in the village of Stepan before establishing itself as the Avtovac garrison the following day. Due to its exposure to fire from rebels overlooking the location, the gendarmes were unable to reoccupy the post in Stepan, which meant that the Stepan-Karita road was no longer secure. On the 8th of June, the district office in Gacko reported to Adriatic Command that they had taken 200 Serbs as hostages and issued a proclamation to the population to cease fighting and surrender the weapons. As this proclamation met with no response, on the 10th of June the Ustaše Commissioner for Bosnia and Herzegovina, Jure Francitic, had 19 hostages shot. On the 12th of June, the gendarmerie in Ravna shot 4 people on the orders of the Ustaše Commissioner for Lubanje. Such actions led to Serb peasants leaving the villages to seek safety in more remote areas, and Muslim villages became increasingly nervous about their Serb neighbors. In mid-June, the commander of the 2nd Company of the 7th Battalion at Bilica wrote to Adriatic Command complaining about the activities of the Ustaše, referring to them as armed scarman animals who were dishonoring honest Croats. When the Italians heard that the Ustaše had burned 2 villages across the border in Montenegro, they sent an intelligence officer to Gacko to investigate the unrest. He did not accept the explanation of the gendarmerie commander in Gacko, who claimed that the violence was caused by personal hatred and revenge, and met with rebels. The rebels did not attack him or his security escort, and told him that the reason behind the rebellion was that Croats and Turks are beating us and throwing us into a pit. He concluded that the cause of the unrest was the attempt to disarm the Serb community. On 17 and the 18th of June, Tonagel and Lieutenant Colonel Aganovic, gendarmerie commander for Eastern Herzegovina, made an attempt to calm the situation by visiting villages east of the Gacko-Avtovac road to re-establish peace in the area. They received a written message from 4 villages that they did not acknowledge the NDH authorities, and wanted the message to be passed on to the Italians. The residents of the villages of Jasenic and Lipnik were willing to talk and return to work, but they asked that the gendarmerie not visit the villages, as this would tempt the Montenegrins to attack. Aganovic assessed that, while this was probably true, the request was insincere. The gendarmerie commander in Bilica believed that the reason for the rebellion was that the local Serbs were wedded to the idea of Greater Serbia, and did not accept that the villages were part of the NDH. This approach essentially meant that local Serbs wanted the NDH authorities to leave them alone and not impose on their lives. According to the historian Davor Marijan, this was a poor choice that gave the Ustaše an excuse to take radical action. The response of the NDH authorities to resistance had been to burn down the villages where this had occurred, and and there were mass shootings of Serbs, which escalated the level of violence even further. In late May and June, 173 Serbs had been rounded up, tortured and killed in Nevesinj, and in early June, another 140 Serbs had been killed at Ljubljanj. In response, Serbs attacked Ustaše's officials and facilities, and conducted raids themselves, killing Muslim villages.